but I read a quote that you put up or emailed or somewhere about withdrawing from the senses, withdrawing from the five senses to, I'm going to use my words, to sit in the eye, or, to have the, I wish I really looked for the quote, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, is this the one did you see it yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the picture quote I put up on Facebook. Definitive advice. Yeah.
Yeah, it caught my attention and I pondered it for a while. And I was wondering if you could explain how one would withdraw from the senses, because it just, I could not see how you could withdraw from the senses.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know how, have you heard me say, Tracy, before that there are only two concepts in the teaching?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard me say that? So on Thursday, I think, well, I said, well, maybe there are three concepts. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the first concept is reality. The second concept is illusion. And then the third concept, if you want to add a third one, is the method of discovering that reality. So there are two concepts, we can say, and one method. Yeah. So in the teaching, we've only got two concepts and one method. The method is always to attend to the reality. You've got the two concepts. One's called reality, one's called illusion. Yeah. One's called self, one's called Maya. And the teaching or the method is to ignore Maya and attend to the self. That's always the teaching. Now, there are lower teachings that are within Maya. They're non-liberating, but they may be helpful. But the fundamental teaching for liberation is always to, well, what is it, Tracy? What's the fundamental teaching? Should I tell you?
Yes, please. Sorry.
It's okay. There are two concepts in the teaching. What are they? Do you know?
Yes, but I can't. Yes, I do know, but I can't repeat them at the moment. No.
It's okay. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I'd much rather, hopefully you'll remember it. I'm
sorry, I don't have notes and stuff with me right now.
Don't worry. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Totally fine. There are two concepts. One is reality, one is illusion. What is it, Tracy?
Reality and illusion.
Yeah. Reality can also be called self. Okay. Illusion can also be called Maya. What can reality also be called?
Self.
And what can illusion also be called?
Maya.
Very good. Self can also be called I am. Yeah?
Yes.
Maya can also be called objects.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Reality can also be called subject. Maya can also be called objects. Yeah?
Yes.
So these are the two concepts. What are the two concepts, Tracy?
Reality and illusion.
Yeah. I'm going to push you a little bit more. Hope you don't mind. And please don't mind if you get it wrong, okay? Because you'll be helping other people. What is another name for reality and another name for illusion?
I am and objects.
Perfect. Exactly. So they're the two concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything in your experience falls into one of these two buckets or these two concepts. You see that? Mm-hmm. Everything in your experience either pertains to the subject or the objects. Yeah? Subject is the reality, objects is the illusion. Yeah? So they're the two concepts of the teaching. The actual teaching itself, the method, involves these two concepts. Yeah? The method is this: ignore the illusion, go towards the reality. Ignore the objects, turn towards the subject. That is always the teaching. Does that make sense, Tracy?
It does.
What is the teaching? What is the method, the teaching?
Ignore the objects and turn towards the self.
Exactly. Perfect. Mm-hmm. So whenever Bhagavan gives a teaching on how to attain liberation, he's always giving that teaching. Okay? But sometimes he uses different words. but it is always that teaching or going towards that teaching. Does that make sense?
It does.
So when he says turn away from the senses, you see, the body, the mind, and the world, this is how I talk about the objects. Objects can be split into body, mind, and world. There are lots of different ways we can subcategorize objects. I just try and keep it simple: body, mind, and world.
Yeah.
It says BMW. It's easy to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a nice distinction. The sense organs, okay? The senses. Name one or two of the senses, Tracy.
Sight, touch, hearing.
Perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do they, well, can you see they pertain to the body?
Yes.
Yeah. The sense organs are related to the body, aren't they?
Yes.
Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your skin.
Yes.
Yeah. These are the 5 sense organs that relate to the 5 senses, correct?
Yes.
This relates to the body. Okay. Now we said there are 2 concepts in the teaching, right? Which of these 2 concepts does the body fit into?
Illusion.
Exactly. Very good. Very good. Yeah. What does the teaching tell us to do with regards to illusion?
To turn away from it.
To turn away from it. And what does it tell us to turn towards?
The self.
The self. So how do you, what was your question? How do you, the definitive advice was to withdraw?
To turn away from the senses.
To turn away from the senses. How, given that I've said there's only one teaching, there's only one method, how do you know, could you answer the question now? Without me, I'm happy to give the answer, but, and I'm happy to do that. But would you be able to propose an answer? How would I withdraw my mind from the senses?
You'd sit in the self. You'd be yourself.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
There's only one method, right? The method is to ignore Maya and turn towards the I am. So how do we withdraw from, when Bhagwan says we have to withdraw our mind from the senses and turn towards the self, he's telling us to ignore Maya and go and attend to the I am. It's the same teaching.
Yeah.
Phrased differently. Why is it phrased in all these different ways? Because people keep on misunderstanding the teaching, distorting it. So he says it in different ways. And each time it makes it clear what you have to do. See, many people will say, well, I don't need to turn away from the sense organs. I just attend to the self. Everything's the self. So I'm not going to turn away from the sense organs because everything is the self. The self's everywhere and everything. I can just be present in this moment. But Bhagavan tries to make the teaching clear. So he says, turn away from the sense organs. Somebody will distort that teaching. So he'll say it a different way another time. I would like to read that first. Has anyone got access to my Facebook page? And can anyone tell me which verse number? Because on the quote, it will tell you which. It says, this is definitive advice. Then there's a quote. It's from Guru Vachakakova. I'm not going to be able to find it, am I? I'm not going to be able to find the quote.
Verse 291.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hester.
Thank you, Hester. Oh, this is a slightly different translation, actually. This is a slightly different translation to the translation I gave. This is verse 291. For those who seek eternal life, the assurance stands. So this is the assured teaching. In the version I gave, it's translates it as this is the definitive teaching, or this is the definitive instruction, or this is the definitive advice. Here, instead of saying definitive, they've translated it as assured, which means certain. This is certainly the teaching. For those who seek eternal life, the assurance stands, means this is the assured, the certain, certainly this is the teaching. The senses 5, retracted, tortoise-like. The mind turned homeward to the self, and their abiding is pure bliss. So it's slightly different wording to the version I put on Facebook. Hester, do you have the Facebook post there? Could you read the version I posted yesterday? Which I posted that version because I think it's a bit clearer for this particular verse.
That version says, "This is the definitive advice for those who desire to gain redemption. Like the tortoise that retracts its 5 limbs, restrain and withdraw the 5 senses, turn your mind towards the self and remain absorbed in it. This alone is happiness."
That's brilliant. Thank you. Tracy, can you, do you know why Bhagavan has given us the metaphor of the tortoise withdrawing its 5 limbs?
Because they stand for the 5 senses.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's it. Now, when Hester read it, and when I read it here, it says the senses 5 retracted tortoise-like in this version. The mind turned homeward towards the self. The first part of the phrase, it says the sense, we retract this, we basically take our energy away from the sense organs. Yeah.
Mhm.
We've got the body, mind, and world, right? And we said that the sense organs relates to which of those? The body or the mind or the world?
They're objects.
They're objects, yeah. And if you remember, we said they're part of the body. Did you remember? Do you remember that?
They're
Yeah?
part of the body. Mhm.
Yeah. The sense organs, part of the body, like the
Mhm.
eyes, the ears, the nose. It's part of the body, isn't it?
Mhm.
If you had to put it in one of those 3 categories, is it in the world, the body, or the mind?
They're in the body. Yeah.
They're in the body, the sense organs.
Yes.
Interestingly, the sense organs are also the link between the mind and the world.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're the interface. The body actually is kind of like the interface between the mind and the world, we could say.
Mhm.
But in this verse, at first it talks about withdrawing the sense organs, which is basically taking your attention away from the body and the world. Why do I say the body and the world? Because the sense organs perceive the world, correct?
Mhm.
And the sense organs are a part of the body, correct?
Yes.
So that first phrase is saying take your attention away from the world and from the body. Yeah. And then the next part of the phrase says the mind turned homewards. So in this verse, which certainly gives us a teaching, it says here, definitive advice, is a certain teaching, it's the assured teaching. It's telling us to take our attention and what it's dealing with all 3 levels of Maya, the body, the mind, and the world. It's telling us to withdraw our attention from the world, from the sense organs, the body, and our mind itself is to go inwards, which means when it says our mind is to go inwards, it means we're to leave all thoughts behind apart from thought of the I am. The thought of the I am takes us to the self, which is not a thought. So this teaching is, if you understand it, if you can see the way it's composed, it's telling us to withdraw our attention from the body, mind, and world, and abide as the self. How do we do that? We just have to go towards the self. How do we do that? We ignore the body, mind, and world and go towards this feeling, I am. Do we do this intellectually, with the strength of the intellect, or do we do this with love, bhakti, devotion?
Love, bhakti, and devotion.
Yeah. This is the importance of bhakti. If you don't have love, if you don't have bhakti, it becomes an intellectual affair. You get a headache. You tie yourself in knots. You don't know how to do the practice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It just becomes very arduous. If you sink into it gently, gradually, with love, affection, devotion, knowing that you are coming home to Bhagavan, who is your love, your guru, your teacher, who you have love and gratitude for giving us this unique teaching that Hester has testified to. It's an unusual teaching. Then this is what helps. If we try and do it by ourselves with our ego, with our mind, you just get a headache. You just tie yourself in knots. You create a lot of tension in the brain, in the head. It doesn't work. And with love, with affection, with devotion, with surrender, this works.
I can attest to the headache.
And I've not noticed this before, but I've just seen the verse prior to verse 291 says this. It says, so verse 291 gives us the teaching to turn away from the senses towards the self. Verse 290 says, by Guru's grace, and this alone, and by no other means can one gain coveted peace and bliss. Therefore, with single-minded zeal, persistent ever, seek such grace. So the prior verse is infusing this teaching with bhakti. Something I hadn't noticed before. That's verse 290.
This is beautiful.
It is. It's beautiful, isn't it? Thank you. It is wonderful. Thank you for saying that. It is. And I've seen the verse afterwards speaks to what Jahira was saying right at the beginning of the satsang. So we've had three questions. If we had three questions or three questions today, well, Jahira read a verse, then Hester testified to her appreciation of the teachings, and then Tracy has asked about this particular verse. And these three verses, 290, 291, 292, all speak to these 3 points. So I'm going to read the next verse with Tracy's verse sandwiched in between. The next verse is 292. It says this: take this to heart. Your own true being, the self within you, shining bright and steady, that alone is real. That alone is real. If without a shadow of doubt you see and love God, as this self, the plenitude of bliss is yours as your own being. So if you love God as this I am within you, this is the way. Which kind of speaks to it. I think it speaks strongly to what Jahira was saying at the beginning.
I agree. They all tied together so wonderfully. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I can go on actually, and I'm going to go on. Next verse, 293. This is one of my favorite verses as well. I do often say that with almost every single verse, you may have noticed. But I mean it every time. I love these verses. Know that these countless things are pictures in a dream, and none is real. When it says countless things, Tracy, what do you think he's referring to?
Maya.
Maya. Objects.
Objects.
Yeah, because remember, objects are many, self is one.
One.
Yeah. Know that these countless things are pictures in a dream, and none is real, apart from the beholder. The beholder means the subject, the seer. Shun this phantom world of names and forms, and dwell in the pure, blissful being of awareness. So if the preceding three verses spoke to Jahira, Hester, Tracy, then this last verse has spoken to what the teaching I gave Tracy, which was that objects are not real, subject is real, ignore the objects, turn towards the subject. I'll read it again. Know that these countless things are pictures in a dream, and none is real apart from the beholder. Shun this phantom world of names and forms, and dwell in the pure, blissful being of awareness. Next verse, 294. It just hammers that same point home. Dwelling on the self supreme, soul, whole, inalienable. So I'll read that again. Dwelling on the self supreme, soul, and soul is S-O-L-E. So it means one. Dwelling on the self supreme, soul, meaning one, whole, inalienable. Inalienable, what does that mean? That means you can't alienate it. It means you can't stand apart from it. It means you can't lose it. I think that's what it means. Dwelling on the self-supreme, soul, whole, inalienable, eternal. This alone is, for the body-bound jiva, the boat to cross the ocean of births. Meaning the only way, if you take yourself to be a person, a body mind, the only way for you to discover the self is to attend to the self. This alone, so he says, this alone is the boat to cross the ocean of births. This alone. The next few verses say the same thing. That was 294, 295, 296, 297, 298, 299, 300. They all say the same thing in slightly different ways. I highly recommend you read those verses. They will all tell you about two concepts: reality and illusion, self and Maya, subject, object. And they all tells you to ignore one of them, which is not real, and go towards the other one, which is real. That's it. That's the entire teaching.